Welcome to Learning Through Technology, a K-12 EdTech podcast brought to you by STS Education. We strive to be the bridge that connects communities of educators so that they can fulfill the promise of learning through technology. Join us every other week as we connect with education leaders who share their deep experience with the education and technology topics you are grappling with in your own schools and districts. Each interview is designed to bring you tangible ideas you can start using tomorrow. I'm Alex Inman, the founder of Educational Collaborators.
And I'm Bob Cerruti, founder of the EduTech Group. Welcome to the show. Well, Alex, we're back at it again. I think we got either good news or bad news from our last podcast, because at the end, you had brought up that we had swag for people and to contact us, and nobody contacted us. So either they think we're perfect already just the way we are, or nobody listens till the end, which disappoints me greatly in my parents. You're going to tell us how they can contact us now.
Right. So we wanted to put this at the beginning, right? Because even if you do think we're perfect, and actually, I would actually like to hear that, we want to hear from our listeners. We've done now about 13, 14 episodes or so. And so we want to hear from you guys. What do you like? What do you not like? What would you like us to talk about? So reach out to us, please, at podcast@stsed.com. So podcast@stsed.com. And if you do, let us know what you're thinking about the show. We're going to send you, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see it. If not, you'll just hear about this fantastic Learning Through Technology poster with photos of Alex and Bob. Don't you want that on your wall? You know you do. And in fact, it's possible that you would send us a message that says, here's my feedback on the show. Please do not send me that poster. I do not need photos or any more visual images of Alex or Bob. That's okay too. We just want to hear from you. Podcast@stsed.com. We got another good show today, Bob. Looking forward to this one. It's kind of an extension of our last episode where we talked about sort of the revolution, waiting for the revolution in education. And we shared kind of our different lenses, but dissatisfaction with what the system does and how it serves students, or really doesn't serve students as well as it could, right? Our guest today is somebody who I am pretty sure shares that opinion and has put together a series of educational frameworks or protocols to kind of help any teacher, any grade, any subject area meet the needs of kids in an engaging way to hopefully drive some of what we talked about wanting in that revolution.
So I am excited to talk to John because we do research, even if it doesn't look like it, we do research on our guests. And at reading an interview with him, it was clear that he was not a successful student like me in his high school years and starting into college. And so that's odd to find, right? Typically teachers are that sit in the front of the classroom, know the answers, raise their hand. So it's very interesting to me to find somebody who's clearly been successful in an education environment who started off like I was. And it's not so much that I blame the system for my not being a good student, but I think instead of having all round holes and square, some square pegs don't fit, but the round pegs do. You guys were the round pegs and you fit right in the hole. I was a square peg and I didn't fit in the hole. And I think John's a fellow square peg for that round hole. We need different size holes for schools for the different shaped students. So I can't wait to see what John's got for us with his new endeavor and making those round holes and square holes for all kinds of students.
Yeah, it's going to be good. All right, well, let's get into it. Hello, everybody. Today, we are thrilled to welcome John Corippo, a true luminary in the realm of educational technology and innovation. John's journey in education has been characterized by a relentless dedication to reimagining teaching practices and fostering student-centered learning environments. With a rich background spanning from classroom teaching to administrative leadership, John's impact has been felt across the educational landscape. As the co-author of the groundbreaking EduProtocols framework and a driving force behind CUE's Rockstar Teacher Camps, John has been at the forefront of empowering educators with practical tools and strategies to enhance student engagement and academic achievement. Welcome to the show, John.
Oh, man, you make it sound like a big deal. I thought we were just going to have fun talking.
We build you up, set a high bar, and then good luck meeting it.
Now here comes all the hard questions.
So glad to have you on the show. And I didn't know that we'd be able to get you actually in a studio. I thought you'd be talking to us via like a cell phone from an airplane with all the travel you've been doing lately.
Yeah, like I was saying, it's since January 1st, I've got about 47 hotel nights. There's been a couple of trips lately where 3 times in a row I was on the East Coast Friday at 3 and presenting on the West Coast Saturday morning at 8.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the demand has been high lately, and I'm pretty good with that.
Well, it's great that you've had that high demand. And I want us to get into kind of what you're doing that has that high demand, but let's go back a little bit. So, share for our listeners a little bit. I mean, I just said all those amazing things that you've done. Share a little bit about your personal journey and kind of what inspired you to delve from the field of ed tech and get to ultimately going to the creation of EduProtocols.
Well, I started teaching last century, Alex. I was born in the 1960s when there was still one Kennedy running for president. So, yeah, it's been a while. Like for me, I got into education pretty much by accident. I ended up sitting with my wife's assistant superintendent at a series of weddings because all of her friends were getting married. And so the girls would be out dancing. It was me and him talking. And he's like, bro, you'd be a great teacher. You should try it. And I was like, okay. And so I was in between jobs and said, let's do this. And like by the third day, I was like, this is what I do. This is my jam.
So, what were you doing before teaching?
I had worked at a Macintosh repair shop. I had done air conditioning. My degree's in advertising. I used to do all their advertising for a small family owned chain of bakeries. Like I've got all this weird background. And it turns out that it worked out really well for teaching. And it's funny that you said ed tech because I don't really see myself as an ed tech guy. Like the analogy I use is if me, you, and Bob were going to put in sprinklers, Bob could use a spoon to dig the ditches. It would work. It would. And Alex, you might go, bro, I'm getting a shovel, dude. I'm not using a spoon. And then I could run down to Home Depot and rent a ditch witch, and you guys would be digging 3 weekends later, and I'd be done by noon. So to me, that's the way I see ed tech. It doesn't have anything to do with the pedagogy. It is all about what gives me the most bang for the buck. And a lot of times in teaching, we're really focused on trying to do the same as last year, but better. And sometimes we just need to walk away and just say, this is not actually working. So to take my story arc to where we are now, right now, what we're seeing is people that they're saying kids don't pay attention. They're saying kids are unruly. They're saying kids don't know how to do their times tables. You know, that's what you hear. If you get on TikTok or social media, everybody's complaining about the kids. And I was like, you guys, maybe it's us. The kids are fine.
Maybe it's not the kids.
And bear in mind, like for people who are just meeting me, I realize that the kids bear some culpability. But I always think of, and dude, I was on this 10 years ago, 12, 15 years ago. But the bottom line is this. Those same kids that teachers say are unteachable, unengaged, unwilling to work, those exact same kids are getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning on Saturday to play soccer for a stranger. Those same kids have 20,000 followers on Minecraft and they obsess over getting their Minecraft videos just right. Those same kids are making TikTok videos hour after hour after. They're engaged when it's relevant. They're engaged when they have a voice. They do not want to listen to our lectures. They do not want to sit quietly while we pine away about how good it was in the old days. And we got to get that fixed because here's my bold prediction. I'm going on the record right now on this show.
Everyone, bold prediction coming right here.
Okay, we all thought the split was at COVID. And like since COVID, things have been getting like this. Here's teaching on a flat level. I'm doing this for your podcast, people. Teaching continues to not change and kids continue to change. And that gap is going to get worse every year until something changes. And there's really, in my mind, there's only two outcomes. One, and I'm going to say this, I'm on the record, public school as we know it collapses. Or we get our stuff together and we start engaging kids for the vibrant, interesting people they are. And as long as we hold them at arm's length and tell them, here's your worksheets and you're not good at it, and that means I'm going to judge you, we are going to have a bigger gap of behavior every year for the foreseeable future. That's my prediction.
John, I think you and I are going to get along just fine. We have many of the same thoughts, and I can't wait to hear more about them. I would also add, for those people who think that it's this generation one of my all-time things I hate the most is when people say, I don't know about this generation. I'll step back and say some of those kids in the past who weren't engaged. I mean, we might not have had Minecraft and we might not have TikTok followers, but we might have started reasonably successful tech businesses. And it wasn't a lack of work ethic. It wasn't a lack of knowledge. It was a lack of engagement. And I can't wait to see where this goes from here. Now is when I usually, stop talking so Alex can talk.
There's this guy, last name of Gates, didn't finish college. There's this other guy, last name Jobs, didn't graduate college. There's this other guy, last name Zuckerberg, didn't graduate from college. Pretty sure Larry Ellison didn't make it either. How are they doing, you guys? And the problem is academics is in love with academics. And if you don't play in their cone, you're a bad person. And that is not playing well with kids who know that there are choices and options. And Bob, to your point too, I was 1-to-1 in 1980. I was on my own BYOD program in 1980.
In 1980, what kind of devices were they using?
A Mattel football.
I had that. That was the greatest thing. You would go to the bottom, wait for the defense to come to the bottom, then go to the top and run and run and run. That's right. That's right. We could learn to be taught.
But I had the old one. There was no passing. There was running only. And you had to be a man on that one.
You and I both.
Sophia, she's like, what is this? You Google it, Sophia. You just had these little dots and they made it into football somehow.
There's probably an emulator you can run on your phone right now. If you can put up with the ads, there's probably a Mattel football.
My sophomore year, I was in a programming class in I think it was 79, might have been the fall of 80. You guys, I totally forgot this story. My mom had to tell me this story 26 years later. I got tossed out of a programming class in 1979 or 80.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
The teacher just said, come to the school. I'm moving your kid out of my class. Can you imagine? Guess what my crime was? Here's the crime. John only wants to be on the computer. What's the name of the class?
John only wants to be on the computer in a programming class. He does not belong here.
And he could not process that, so I had to be removed from the class.
I once took a class that was called reading, in which they didn't let us read what we wanted to read. I was like, I'm all down for reading.
Yeah, Bob's like, I brought my Lord of the Rings. I got my 1984. They're like, no, do SRAs. It's not that kind of reading class.
Just to be clear, I was a sci-fi guy. Lord of the Rings, not my thing.
That's okay.
So, John, you and I have something in common with EduProtocols and EduTech, aside from the names kind of being similar there, in that we've had careers that spanned, let's say, a few decades or a couple before starting these endeavors. So what leads you to walk away, or not really walk away, but to make that turn from a successful educational technologist in schools to EduProtocols? That seems like a big move.
Well, but see, that's the thing I was getting at earlier, Bob, is I always liked technology at school, but I'm always about results. So I'm not in love with the tool. And that's where I was going with the ditch witch versus spoon scenario. So I never wake up in the morning going, hey, I need geeky technology. I wake up in the morning and I go, hey, my kids can't read so good. So how can technology make that work? And I think that's really important because there's a lot of people that used to like a thing called accelerator reader. That's not giving me the results I'm looking for. Again, for Sophia, Oregon Trail. Yay, all the old timers love. Where was the academics? Where's the academics? By the way, Sophia, they now have Oregon Trail, Organ. It's the zombie version.
No way. I have not heard of this. There's Oregon Trail?
Oregon Trail, yeah.
So what's the zombie equivalent of you died of dysentery?
I think you have to make it across a thing. I don't know what the thing is.
It was almost like a reward, like in middle school when you died of
that's
dysentery.
The problem. That's why I bristle when people say EdTech, because I keep seeing this. Bob, tell me how I'm doing. Bob, if you'll color these starfish and these bears the right color on your crappy worksheet, you can touch the computer. Dude, this is not the jam. This blackmail mindset. Bob, if you don't turn in your spelling packet, you can't go to computer lab. What the hell is that? And you guys, this is the state of the reality out there. I've been in 750 classrooms in 5 states and 3 countries or 4 countries in the last 2 years. When I go to a first grade classroom and I say, open your Chromebooks, and then I say, type in this URL. 99% of the kids do this right here. They put their hands up like they're on a roller coaster and they look down at the keyboard and they're like, what is that? And again, I'm not throwing any products under the bus here, but they go to Google Classroom, they click a link. They go to Clever, they click a link. They go to ClassLink, they click a link. They can't actually type. It's all spoon-fed, and we call it baby birding. If you think I'm going to chew up your URL and spit it in your mouth, you're wrong, because letters and numbers and punctuation in the right order, that's 4 standards. And when I am so teachered up that I can't wait 3 minutes for them to type in actual letters on the actual internet, and they don't know what an omnibar is, I am shortchanging those kids. In fact, you're going to love this one, Bob. I had 75 second graders. tinyurl.com, name your school, WW for word wall. We're doing this activity. They can't put it in. And the teachers keep trying to step in. I'm like, stay back. This is my people right now. I got this. And the kids are struggling. And I go, you guys, does your mommy put you on Roblox? And they're like, no. Does your mommy put you on Minecraft? No. Does your mommy shop for you on Amazon, or do you tell her what you want on Amazon? They're like, I go, well, guess what? I'm not putting you in the game. Get yourself in. And within 3 or 4 minutes, they had all responded. You guys, that's also an SEL thing. I can go to school and be functional. Like, there's a lot of subtext going on here. What's more important than kindergarten and first grade than being able to type your letters and numbers in the right order? And I'm literally walking around going, hey, there's no space on the internet. There's no spaces. Quit putting spaces in. Or this is the best one, Bob. Kid yells, where's the 5? Here's what I yell back. It's the number line.
After 4.
It's right by 4. It's been there your whole life.
Alex needed you to tell him that he's a communications major.
And of course, I started looking at that moment.
He's like, wait, where is it? But I mean, literally 5th graders, where's the 5? 3rd graders, how do you make a big I? I'm like, oh my gosh. So to me, that's not an ed tech problem. That is a belief in kids problem. That is a challenging the kids problem. That is a leadership issue. You can't have a high school football team that can't get out of the huddle. You're not going to win any games.
And by just waiting, you're creating that space for them to construct that knowledge, right? And one of the things you were talking earlier about how, like, if you're good, if you finish your worksheet, we'll give you the computer time. Well, now it's like, we'll give you the computer time, and what are you going to do? I'm going to do worksheets on the computer. I saw a tool that does some differentiation using AI, and the differentiation that it provided was 17 different worksheets. And I was like, wow.
Well, I'll throw another one on the bus. It's about 3 years old now. It was called Mount Cleverest.
Oh, I don't remember that one. Mount Cleverest. It's a great
Mount
title.
Cleverest.
It's a great name.
Yeah, the idea is great. And the idea was you can take any web page and it'll make a quiz out of the web page. And Sophia's not a teacher. She's like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, until you see the freaking questions. The questions are horrible. So yeah, they are questions.
Yeah, right. I can create a question.
How tall is Mount Everest? It's the tallest. Oh, great. The problem is that when I was in first grade, you would have the kid who could memorize all 50 state capitals. And everybody was like, ooh, bro, I got a phone. That is not a thing. That weird kid that knows all the capitals, that's just a weird kid. That's not a thing anymore. I think that the goal of ed tech is to help kids be more creative, not more memorizing. That's the key.
That's a good transition because I wanted you to get...
Yeah, you got to keep me moving or I'll get distracted.
Yeah. Move along, John. I got another question for you.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about EduProtocols, right? Help our listeners understand what is it, what are you doing with it, and how do you use it to empower students, to help teachers to empower students?
So I'm going to start at the simplest because I've tried to come up with about 10,000 analogies over the last 8 or so years. So basically, think about it this way.
We have time for 2.
I'm going to just give you the good ones. Okay, here's one analogy. Bob, Sophia, and Alex are mythical students not related to you guys sitting in my class. I come into class and I'm spouting information. And at the best level, I'm making you take notes. I'm forcing you to take notes. At the end of the semester, what are your actual skills?
To take notes.
So that's it.
Yeah, okay.
So think about it like a Venn diagram. All I've done is deliver content. Now, you know what happens next year when Sophia gets to the next class? The teacher's like, you can't write a paragraph? All we had to do was write notes.
Yeah, you didn't ask me to write a paragraph. All I needed to do was write note.
And unfortunately, Bob wasn't writing the notes. Bob was just writing jokes, but they looked like notes, and the teacher didn't correct it until the end of the quarter. And then Bob just photocopied Sophia's notes, so Bob didn't even get the content. So that's one scenario.
I've seen his notes. They don't sound like jokes either.
He wouldn't recognize one if it hit him in the head.
My first scenario is you've got to teach content and skills, because if you teach English all year and in the end your kids know parts of speech and subject verb agreement and all that, but they can't write a paragraph, what do you have? Nothing. The second way to set up EduProtocols is, I'm going to use the Venn diagram again. I can use a Venn diagram in first grade. Let's compare 1 and 2. Now, what are we doing on Bloom's taxonomy? We are whatting? Thinking, comparing, analyzing, which is very different than what is 1 plus 1. But if you're comparing 1 and 2, it's a totally different animal. Now, I can take that same Venn diagram and I can go up to 5th or 6th grade. Let's compare ancient Rome to ancient Greece. Well, now it's a much more complicated thing. So think of EduProtocols almost like a Venn diagram. By the way, I think there's a Venn diagram birthday every year. Like it's 183 years old or something like that. I want that to be my legacy. I want people to celebrate EduProtocols every year. So that's a whole separate thing. Anyway, what we try to do in protocols is we try to teach the skills of writing paragraphs, summarizing, making a presentation, making a slide deck at the same exact time that we're teaching the content. So that when Bob or Alex or Sophia gets to the next year's class, the teacher goes, dude, you can do everything. Let me just teach you my content. You see that different vibe right there? And so we think of them as like frameworks or lesson frames. And then all you do is swap out the content. So an example is this week we're doing a cyber sandwich about ancient Rome. So how long did that take me to develop? Well, it's just a cyber sandwich. I just put a couple links, the kids go. Next week, we're going to do the politics of ancient Rome. I just switched the input, work products identically the same. Oh, no, we're in science? Not a problem. Let's learn about the Kepler Space Telescope. Still a cyber sandwich. Let's learn about, we're doing like famous female figures, and I can't remember her name, but the lady who ran the nuclear submarine computer program. Still a cyber sandwich.
Hopper.
Yeah, Hopper, Grace Hopper.
Yeah, Grace
I knew
Hopper.
I was close. Okay. Big
Bob's on
bonus
it.
points right there, Bob. Yeah. You know what I remember one time? She had a piece of wire this long, and she showed it, and she said, that is how long a nanosecond is. That's how far something travels in a nanosecond. I was like, wow, that's a really good visual for that.
Struggling to find and retain excellent staff for your CIO, academic tech coaching, or database manager positions? Educational Collaborators provides hybrid and remote services from a team of former and current EdTech experts to help you fill these positions with full and fractional roles. Add national EdTech leaders to your staff on your current personnel budget. Need operational IT support? Reach out to my good friend and co-host Bob Cerruti at EduTech. Don't struggle with school technology staffing. Contact us today. Visit educollaborators.com/augmented-services. Let's dig into that for just a second, actually. Let's stay with that for a second. So, EduProtocols, frameworks for which you can interchange the lessons. You use the framework of a cyber sandwich as the protocol. What's a cyber sandwich?
A cyber sandwich is basically you put two kids in a pair. They each get one article to read. So let's say Bob and Alex are both reading about Caesar. And then your job, Alex, is to get some salient facts. Bob's doing the same thing, but you haven't talked about it yet. So you each take notes without me guiding you. Then you pair up. This is the sandwich part. Hey, what notes did you get? And like Bob's into like, oh my God, like Mark Antony bailed on him and Brutus killed him and like nobody liked him. And Bob's taking this dark Gothic point of view. And Alex is like, but he did this and he crossed the Tiber. And so now that little conversation happens. And then this is my personal variation. I ask each pair to report out. And so they can do Bazinga, which is something mind-blowing. They can do wall of facts, which is I'm not committing to anything, but I'll give you 3 facts. Or for double points, they can ask a question. And this is a true story. I was doing early man and South Central America with my 6th graders 3 years ago. And I just by happenstance noticed on my Apple News feed that they had found an 8-mile long cave painting in Costa Rica. And I went, dude, that's long. And it was outside. So I go, let's feed that into the cyber sandwich and see what we get. So really good responses, but about 5 different groups were like, bro, how are we just finding this thing? And it's 8 miles long. What's the story? And that's the way we want kids to respond to reading. We want their mind to be going, what is going on? So the key is that conversation doesn't happen until you've read and shared. So I'm prepping their conversation. I don't know if you guys know what tardigrades are. Do you know what tardigrades are?
I don't think so.
They're little 8-legged water bear things. They call them water bears. As Sophia's Googling it right now, I can see her head. She's like, Google. Yeah. So tardigrades, water bears. So they're these creepy little things. They live in space. They live in volcanoes. They live in ice. And guess what? When we did the question sequence, one group said, so what does kill them? And I go, I don't know. So we Googled it. You know what turns out to kill them? The most effective way to kill them? If you eat them. The human digestive tract breaks them down. Space won't kill them. Volcanoes won't kill them. Ice won't kill them. They could be desiccated for 10 years, but if you eat them, that wipes them out.
Huh. Maybe we need a salad, a water bear salad or something like that.
I like it. Water bear dressing.
I don't think we should let Alex be in charge of the menu.
So anyways, the point is, oh, and then the last piece is, so we go quiet, read to yourself, chit chat, Socratic seminar, and then reflect. What did you learn? And the paragraph can be first person, third person, response to literature. It could be whatever you want.
That's a great example. Thank you for that.
And again, what grade? 4th grade or AP? Doesn't matter.
Right.
So, John, another thing that you and I have in common, I had never described myself this way, but it fit exactly. You've described yourself as a former disgruntled student. One, I want to know why former and what happened to change you from former disgruntled student.
This is a good question.
Yeah, let's hear it, because I too saw myself as a, disgruntled student. What tense will you use for me? I don't know.
I would use the term formerly disgruntled student because I never liked school. And I didn't hate it, but it seemed like a lot of wasted time and a lot of waiting for something scary that never showed up. Like I graduated from high school and I was like, when's the scary part? Like I thought there was a scary part. And so for me, it just a lot of time out of my life. And it wasn't really optimized. It didn't build my creativity necessarily by design. I was pretty much a loner all the way through school, so it didn't bring me any friends. And I'll wrap up with formally disgruntled because once I started teaching, I was able to exercise my own demons. And so for me, being in front of kids is incredibly therapeutic.
John, I do want to hear more about that change. I think that's probably something that's very interesting. But you said something there that struck me. Waiting for something bad to happen. I've never heard it described like that in high school, but it was exactly how I felt. Like every day I would wonder, is today the day? Now, some of it was my own fault. Like I didn't do my homework and today was going to be the teacher asked for it and I didn't do it. But it could have been social. It could have been athletic.
There's just this sense of impending doom all the time.
That's exactly right. And I've never heard anybody say that before. And when you said it, I felt it. That's what it was like getting ready to go to school. So anyway, please do tell us how we can exercise these demons.
For me, it is really enjoying the kids. And you hear just the banter that we have in this conversation. It's really about like coming to school with not having a predisposed idea of what the day is going to be and not saying things like this. I have to be mean to you guys because you're getting ready to go to middle school. I have to be tough on you guys because you're getting ready to high school. Oh man, you guys probably aren't going to college. So I got to teach you about the real world. And then you go to college and you're like, it's just high school again. When's the scary part? Now, obviously, if you go into nuclear physics, that's a different game. But what are 70% of people in college? Business. There's no big scary part. You got to get through stats. But it's like, come on, you guys. What was all the scary? What was all the insanity about?
The insanity or the scary part comes from just the unrecognized expectations of people who have preconceived notions of what success means relative to academics rather than to actually doing something with the knowledge.
Right. No production. Now, when school changed for me was my last semester and a half of college, because in advertising, it's project-based learning. So you have to make commercials, you have to make shows, you have to make presentations. And I popped right up to a 4.0 once that was happening. Once that happened, I was like, oh, this totally makes sense. Why haven't I been doing this the whole time? So for me in teaching, I've tried to replicate a lot of that part of my college experience, which is we're going to make stuff. Because in the end, if you can't make things, content knowledge in the world of Wikipedia and Siri and Alexa is pretty stupid looking.
Yeah. You talked earlier on the show about getting kicked out of programming because you wanted to spend all your time on the computer. And my lowest grade in college was Intro to Computer Science. And I'm a tech director.
Yeah. And what do you do for a living? So education is not a good predictor of what people are going to be.
No. Well, and in the same semester that I was getting my lowest grade in Intro to Computer Science, I was programming with C++ on the first interactive CD-ROM to come out of the state, that we were building for the public library system.
Oh,
right?
CD-ROM.
Oh, yeah. We actually had to drive to Chicago to burn the Gold Master CD-ROM because we didn't have any back then. And so we put it on a SciQuest tape drive.
Sophia, we used to call CD burners coaster makers because only 1 out of 5 CDs would burn successfully.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That was so badly true.
So those of our listeners, how many of you are shocked to find out that Alex's lowest scores were in computer science? Not this guy.
I think half of the class was spent learning how to count in binary. I'm like, just because the computer counts that way, isn't that the reason for us not to have to count in binary?
That's the whole point, right?
Okay, wait a second. Counting in binary is the greatest thing ever. You can count to 1,023 on your 2 hands. If you count in binary, do it all the time. I taught my daughter how to do it when she was 4. It's the greatest thing. It's a cool parlor trick. You are so missing the boat, Alex. So missing
And
the
to
boat.
prove your point, when you go 128, 256, 512, 1028, that's RAM sizes. That's how I learned
That's right.
to do factoring, was by RAM sizes. Now it all
That's
makes
right.
sense. I'm like, oh, yeah, 4, 8, 16, it all makes sense. But up until then, it did not.
So I got to say this. You have heard John refer to Sophia, our producer, and we see her, but she's not allowed to talk for some reason.
Oh, look at her. She's so proud looking right now.
She's like that person behind the studio, like on the radio show.
She's like, I am a person.
This is funny, though, to me. John is talking about, unless you're a nuclear physics major, which, for those who don't know, Sophia has a degree in physics.
Physics, right?
She's
And
like,
she had the nerve to message me when I was talking about binary counting to say, Bob, you are a nerd.
Right. Bob, you're a nerd because you count in binary, says the physicist.
So, bro, she's counting in pack.
are we getting into a nerd fest right now?
So I'd like it put out there, of the engineers at my college, we only looked upon the physics majors as the biggest nerds in the school. So she's calling me out on that. Hey, how dare you? How dare you? I'm done. Off my soapbox.
John, I felt a nerd story coming on.
That's a weird thing about me. I'm like a crossover person. I'm not that geeky, but I can walk in the land of the geeks with safety.
So, John, we usually wrap up with this, after our question is, are there any resources that you think we should point our listeners to that would help them understand more of what you've talked about today? We only had a little time together. And of course, we'll let you send us stuff when we're done recording as well. And we'll post them with our show notes when we publish the podcast.
I'm glad you asked, Bob. One of my claims to fame whenever I do professional development is free lifetime tech support. And usually every weekend I help between 3 and 5 teachers. So my first piece of info I'm giving away is jcorippo@gmail.com, which is my email. And if I've struck a chord with anybody, drop me a line. We'll chat it out.
You said free tech support.
Lifetime tech support. So like, how does Padlet work? I got that. How do I do WeVideo? How do I do GimKit?
We're just going to add you, by the way, to our own tech support resources.
You can do that. You can do that. And what's shocking is how many people don't email me, because I've shared that like in keynotes before and then had like one person email me. So The first thing is, if you want help, it's out there. The second one is we have free resources. You can go to eduprotocols.com, and there's a ton of free templates there you can download, including our infamous random emoji generator, which generates random emoji, and we have the kids write about them because the hamburger paragraph is, I'm just sorry, it's bad. It's so bad, the hamburger. So with the random emoji, what we do is we give kids 5 random emoji. And yes, we have filtered them, Bob, although I did make them keep the poo. The poo is still there, but we took out the taco, the peach, the water drops, the eggplant. Middle school teachers know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of free stuff there. And then we also have a paid free service. How do you like that paradox? Called eduprotocolsplus.com, because free isn't good enough. I have professional free support at eduprotocolsplus.com. And what's fun about that is it's one price for your whole life for PD. Nobody's doing that on the planet. I think it's $279. We come out with new EduProtocols every month. There's courses people can take. We've got podcasts and things like this that are all EduProtocol specific. And then the third one, because Sophia's going to start doing this tapping her watch business. The third one is, if you're still on Facebook, which is a whole other kind of story that we could get into, but if you're still on Facebook, we've got about 15,500 teachers sharing like crazy on Facebook. And it's called the EduProtocols community. It's pretty easy to see. And the reason I point that out, because you're going to love this, Bob, because we are clearly on a wavelength. I did a keynote 2 weeks ago in Monterey, and this is what the slide said: expect to self-rescue.
Nice.
There's no help coming. The Department of Ed is not going to save us. Your state Department of Ed is not going to save us. Your county's not going to save us. Your district's not going to save us. And your principal's not going to save us. You're going to have to save yourself. You're going to have to learn how to teach. And it's free if you'll take the time. We've got a ton of ways, and there's other people besides us, but this is my damn show. If you want to get better at teaching, EduProtocols is free. Go to the Facebook group, look on Twitter. We share, we share, we share. We've coined the phrase oversharers about ourselves. But if you keep sitting there waiting for a person with a binder and a DVD that Alex made in 1988 to save you from the way you're currently teaching, and approximately 90% of teachers, according to surveys, are not happy with their career, you're going to have to save yourself. Yeah, we've got some books on Amazon if you want. That's fine. But in the end, if you buy the book, it's not going to save anything. You got to decide you're going to change. And that's why the free part's so compelling for me. If you're not willing to sit there and learn to make beer, you will not be good at making beer. If you don't want to learn how to cook brisket, you won't be good at making it. If you burn your hamburgers every time, that's on you. You got to sit down, you got to be thoughtful, and you got to say, how am I going to do this different? And that's our clarion call to people. Take another look, because you guys, you have 30 human children in your class. And I think you'll like this quote a lot, Bob. They only get 6th grade once. I don't want to F it up. Like for me, it's just one more 6th grade. But Sophia, I guarantee you, and she can hold up fingers, at least one class where she was like, what was going on in that class? That was one long year. My job is to prevent that from happening. My job is to make every year feel like it makes sense for you as an individual, as a learner. And my job is to make you the best you can be. And in Bob's case, it might be manual labor. And in Alex's case, it might be nuclear physicist. Doesn't matter. I can't get judgy on that. I want you to be the best you that you can be. And that's not what school has taught us to do.
No. John, thanks so much for the entertainment, the fun, the wisdom, and the resources, too, that you make available to teachers. It was great having you on the show. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we should do this again. Let's see if there's any listeners or comments, and then we'll come back in 3 months and hit them again.
There you go. Well, thanks so much for the show.
I love the pushback out there, listeners. I love the pushback. Tell us why we're wrong, because I'll tell you why we're not wrong.
And send those pushback comments to Sophia Gaines at
yes, Gaynes.
All right. Well, thanks so much, John. Looking forward to future conversations with you.
You bet.
Well, Alex, that was a ride I wasn't expecting when we started. This is what happens when we leave you in the driver's seat. I thought that we would talk about John's specific new endeavor with EduProtocols, but we were everywhere there, and you seem to enjoy the conversation. What did you find, I guess, best about it?
Oh, man, I loved that ride. Like, we have a timer when we're doing these podcasts, and I look down at it, and then I just get back into the conversation. I glance back down. I'm like, my God, 9 minutes have passed in this episode. To me, that was just a ton of fun. Great energy from a guy who's clearly passionate about education and good education, right? And helping people. So I loved it. I think the only thing, and I probably caused this, as you're saying, the only thing that I didn't get is we got through one really good protocol, right? The cyber sandwich. But there are so many that he has available to our listeners and to people. And we only got into one, but I kind of like, no, I'm not asking for forgiveness for us rambling through a lot of really fun stuff to talk about.
If you had asked for forgiveness every time you talked too much, we would just be here at the end with you apologizing every time.
Constant confession.
So, you know what amazed me is we put our guests on the spot sometimes and ask them for resources. He just went on and on with high quality resources, and they're all free or cheap. That I don't understand how he can do it.
Nah, it's really amazing. And he was sort of subtle about his books, but there's like 6 books. Now they're all EduProtocol books, and I'm sure certainly have not read them. So I'm sure that there's some duplication across them, but education level versions and math ones and social studies versions, and like so much work to help teachers in the trenches really create engaging lessons. And I mean, this is a man on a mission, and it was really exciting to sort of be his journey mate through the course of this episode, you know?
I do. What's funny to me is he said, oh yeah, and there are books too if you want to buy them on Amazon. But here's where all the free stuff is. Come join our Facebook. Unlimited free lifetime tech support. Like, when's the last time you heard somebody, even good people, say, don't worry about the book. Come here and get it for free. And it's his book.
I know it. Well, he's an educator, right? The man is clearly a giver, not a seller. And so what a joy to have somebody like that bring so many great resources that are so passionately aligned with what I think all of us, we talked about this in the intro, but I think all of us really believe the education environment really needs.
That's us square pegs.
There you go. Well, and that's just it, right? Like if you think about his protocol, there's space for the round peg, the square peg, the star-shaped peg. Like I think it was a lot of fun to hear sort of the anecdote for the teachers who only teach the same way to clearly the targeted students all the time. And that's what's going to give us that revolution rather that we were looking for. So that was great. All right, Bob. Well, another episode in the can. Till next time, my friend.
See you, Alex.
Don't forget to let us know what's going on with your thoughts on this podcast at podcast@stsed.com.
Learning Through Technology, a K-12 EdTech podcast, is brought to you by STS Education, a Pacific OneSource company. To learn more about how educators can leverage technology to drive successful educational outcomes, check us out at www.stsed.com. Connect with us by searching for Learning Through Technology in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And click subscribe so you don't miss an episode. On behalf of the team at STS Education, thanks for joining us.